So I was watching one of my favorite movies, right? The movie Seven with Brad Pitt. Really great movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But even if you haven't seen it, I'm going to explain everything. And I promise, just stick with me. This is all going to make sense and it's all going to tie together. So basically in the film, there's a serial killer and he's in the process of killing 7 people. Each of these people committed one of the 7 deadly sins, or they're living the life of committing one of the 7 deadly sins. Lust, greed, gluttony, envy, anger, sloth, and lust. All right? And the ones that I want to talk about today primarily are lust and sloth. So when I first saw this when I was young, I mean, the other ones, all of those sins are kind of obvious, right? Except for sloth. I didn't really know what that meant. But then when I did some research, I realized that it's basically when you live just a very more or less lazy kind of lifestyle. Like you're not really contributing to society. You're kind of just, picture like the dude who's like in the bedroom with the video games and the junk food and is not working, not doing anything. He's just doing that all day. Now, I personally think that the perception of hell and what hell means has been very misconstrued over the course of the last, whenever the Bible was written. I think what Jesus actually meant, and if you're a very devout kind of Christian follower, Catholic follower, and I see guys, you comment on my thing all the time, follow Jesus and praise Jesus, this might even trigger you a little bit. You're not going to agree with this, but this is what I think. I think that the meaning behind sins and hell has been very misconstrued over the course of time. I think that hell is actually in our mind. I think it's something that we create for ourselves. I don't think it's a place that you go because you committed these acts on earth and then after you die, you go to this place called hell. I think that when you commit sins, you create sort of this sense of hell for yourself. When you commit sins, so for example, let me give you a more concrete example. When you do nothing but coom to adult content all the time and sit in your room masturbating, that lifestyle is hell. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that, right? Another good example would be like when you cheat on your spouse and then, you have this great family life and then you fuck up and you cheat on your spouse and then they take the kids from you, they divorce you, and now you're just left in this sort of sense of hell. I think that whole idea behind if you have to do good on earth and if you don't and you commit these sins, then you're going to go to hell. I think that was just a way to kind of control and scare people. But I don't completely dismiss the Bible or Christianity. It's not my thing too much personally, but I do think there's probably a lot of truth in what they talk about. And when you commit sins, you live a life of hell. I mean, depression and anxiety can often be the product of, like, for example, if you're living a very envious life where you're always jealous of people all the time, you're always trying to compete people, that to me is that's like living in hell. You know what I mean? And I think that heaven is when you break out of all of that and you don't necessarily commit sins and you sort of break away from that and you achieve like sort of a state of enlightenment. I believe I believe heaven and hell are just things that we experience in this human form. So when it comes to retaining, I believe that you're kind of on the path to, I guess, what you can call heaven or enlightenment. And a lot of sages have spoke about this, how retaining and practicing a celibate lifestyle is a necessity if you truly want to, become spiritually awakened or spiritually enlightened. And I'm finding this for myself ever since I completely shifted my whole life. I'm just I just feel a lot more better. And I feel a lot better. And if you don't believe me, and if you're still skeptical of retention, which I completely understand, just ask yourself, why do you feel so good after 30 days? Why do you have so much motivation and confidence after 30 days? If you go to any of these sort of retention videos talking about this, you'll see multiple comments of guys in the comments talking about their experience, the great things that have happened to them. We've all sort of experienced this sort of magical kind of, like, we've all had these weird sort of magical situations, you know what I mean? So anyway, back to the point. I could tell you from experience that when you sort of break out of that lifestyle and you decide to go a more celibate path, everything kind of aligns for you and life sort of gives you what you need. Even if it's not necessarily what you think you need in the first place, it's going to get you on the right path. And this is why, like, worldly desires are they don't even make sense, because most of the things we desire we've never even had before. So how do we know we want it? Like, desires aren't real. It's just something that our mind thinks we want, you know? Now, I do believe that there are some innate desires, like the desire for love, the desire for comfort, you know, water. Those are real desires. But many of us have desires that aren't coming from any kind of experience. It's just something that we see and we think we want, you know? It's the very reptilian part of our brain, the monkey mind. You know, life will give you everything that you need to level up. It's going to throw tests at you. It's going to throw hardships at you. But then when you come to find, I mean, I could tell you at 32 years old that everything that ever happened to me was completely necessary, even the worst stuff, you know. It all got me to where I am today. So when you do decide to sort of walk this path of retention or celibacy, and not even necessarily celibacy, but you just try to relieve yourself of lust, and you pursue a way more healthier lifestyle, you find yourself on the path to salvation. And I mean, it's not even like, even if you're not into the spiritual woo-woo stuff, you just feel so much better. You know what I mean? You just feel like you just feel like a much better person. So I definitely do think that I think the 7 deadly sins come from Catholicism, and I definitely do think they were onto something. And there were a lot of Catholic and Christian mystics who spoke about sort of this oneness with God. So they didn't necessarily believe in the how everybody else looks at Christianity, where God is above you and you have to listen to him and obey him, but more so of the Hindu perspective, where everything is sort of one. It's all kind of one interconnected thing. So there's definitely some interesting stuff there, but more or less, I do think life rewards you when you retain. And I mean, just look at the strange occurrences that happen to you. I mean, sometimes I still wonder, like, you know, is it all just in my head? Did those things happen because of this? And I firmly believe that they did. So, you know, that's just what I think. And, you know, I haven't been too into it for the past couple of months. I just started like a couple of weeks ago to really hone down on retention again. But sometimes I go through phases, but more or less, I'm usually practicing it. And I always find that every time I do, strange things happen. So let me know what you think. What weird experiences have you had? Do you think life or the universe or whoever kind of rewards us for practicing this? Rewards us for not really sinning, so to speak?